Yeah, or if he apologizes, he doesn't mean it because he's going to do it again. Like the stalking.
Are we going to talk about that?
Yes.
I think we should start that off by reading the part where
it begins.
Yeah, like I just need to find it.
Yes, of course. I will make a twilight song for you.
So we're just gonna be reading parts of the first time that he enters her home, because I feel like it's so much easier to talk about when we have the text with us. So just to give some context, it's after she's been invited a bunch of times to the ball and has said no, and he's becoming very curious about her, and he's starting to really worry about her and think about how all of the messed up ways she could die because she's so unlucky. The others were scheduled to hunt tomorrow, but I couldn't afford to be thirsty now. It's because he's planning to actually start talking to her again, so he's going hunting. I overdid it, drinking more than necessary, glutting myself again. A small grouping of elk and one black bear. I was lucky to stumble across this early in the year. I was so full it was uncomfortable. Why couldn't that be enough? Why did her scent have to be so much stronger than anything else? And not just her scent, whatever it was about her that marked her for disaster. She'd been in forest for mere weeks, and already she'd twice come within inches of a violent end. For all I knew, right at this very moment, she could have wandered into the path of another death sentence. What would it be this time? A meteorite smashing through her roof and crushing her in her bed? I could hunt no more, and the sun was still hours and hours from rising. Now that it had occurred to me, the idea of the meteorite and all its possible allies was hard to dismiss. I tried to be rational, to consider the odds against all the disasters I could imagine, but that didn't help. What were the odds, after all, that the girl would come to live in a town with a decent percentage of vampires as permanent residents? What were the odds that she would appeal to one so perfectly? What if something happened to her in the night? What if I went to school tomorrow, every sense and feeling focused onto the space where she would be, and her seat was empty? Abruptly, the risk felt unacceptable. The only way I could be positive she was safe was if there was someone in place to catch the meteorite before it could touch her. The jittery high swept through me again when I realized that I was going to go find the girl. The girl again. It was past midnight, and Bella's house was dark and quiet. Her truck was parked against the curb, her father's police cruiser in the driveway. There were no conscious thoughts anywhere in the neighborhood. I watched the house from the blackness of the forest that bordered it on the east. There was no evidence of any kind of danger, aside from myself. I listened and picked out the sound of two people breathing inside the house, 2 even heartbeats, so all must be well. I leaned against the trunk of a young hemlock and settled in to wait for stray meteorites. It's obviously just a metaphor, the meteorite. He's not thinking of actual meteorites. The problem with waiting was that it freed up the mind for all kinds of speculation. Obviously, the meteorite was just a metaphor for all the unlikely things that could go wrong, but not every danger would streak across the sky with a brilliant splash of fire. I could think of many that would give no warning, hazards that could slink into the dark house silently that might already be there. These were ridiculous worries. This street didn't have a natural gas line, so a carbon monoxide leak was improbable. I doubted they used coal frequently. The Olympic Peninsula had very little in the way of dangerous wildlife. Anything large I would be able to hear now. There were no venomous snakes, scorpions, centipedes, and just a few spiders, none of them deadly to a healthy adult, and unlikely to be found indoors regardless. Ridiculous. I knew that. I knew I was being irrational. But I felt anxious, unsettled. I couldn't push the dark imaginings from my mind. If I could just see her, I would take a closer look. In only half a second, I had crossed the yard and scaled the side of the house. This upstairs window would be a bedroom, probably the master. Maybe I should have started in the back, less conspicuous that way. Dangling from the eave above the window by one hand, I looked through the glass and my breath stopped. It was her room. I could see her in the one small bed, her covers on the floor and her sheets twisted around her legs. She was perfectly fine, of course, as the rational part of me had already known. Safe, but not at ease. As I watched, she twitched restlessly and threw one arm over her head. She did not sleep soundly, at least not this night. Did she sense the danger near her? I was repulsed by myself as I watched her toss again. How was I any better than some sick peeping Tom? I wasn't any better. I was much, much worse. I relaxed my fingertips, about to let myself drop. But first I allowed myself one long look at her face. Still not peaceful. The little furrow was there between her brows. The corners of her mouth turned down. Her lips trembled and then parted. "Okay, Mom," she muttered. Bella talked in her sleep. Curiosity flared, overpowering self-disgust. So long I tried to hear her and failed. The lure of those unprotected, unconsciously spoken thoughts was impossibly tempting. What were human rules to me, after all? How many did I ignore on a daily basis? I thought of the multitude of illegal documents my family needed to live as we liked. False names and false histories, driver's licenses that let us enroll in school, and medical credentials that allowed Carlyle to work as a doctor. Papers that made our strange grouping of nearly identically aged adults comprehensible as a family. None of it would be necessary if we didn't try to have brief periods of permanence, if we didn't prefer to have a home. Then, of course, there was the way we funded our lives. Insider trading laws didn't apply to psychics, but it certainly wasn't honest what we did. And the transfer of inheritances from one fabricated name to another wasn't legal either. And then there were all the murders. We didn't take them lightly, but obviously none of us had ever been punished by human courts for our crimes. We covered them up, also a crime. Then why should I feel so guilty over one little misdemeanor? Human laws had never applied to me, and this was hardly my first adventure with breaking and entering. I knew I could do this safely. The monster was restless, but well fettered. I would keep a careful distance. I would not harm her. She would never know I'd been here. I only wanted to be certain that she was safe. It was all rationalization, evil arguments from the devil on my left shoulder. I knew that, but I had no angel on the right. I would behave as the nightmarish creature that I was. And then he climbs into her.
And then he keeps doing it every night. Get the fuck out, Edward. He's even comparing murder, like him murdering people, to going into a girl's room and looking at her while she's sleeping.
But I actually feel like the worst part is that it's not the fact that it's a human law that this matters. The problem here is that you're violating her privacy.
Yes!
And
so true.
And
Preach.
you like her. Let's say that you were violating the privacy of someone you didn't know and you never intended to see again because you, like, let's say that they needed to enter some house to get something to go on or whatever. That would be less of a crime to me because they weren't breaking and entering in order to lurk on someone.
Yeah, or like when they get her truck key. He drives Bella home and then she wants the truck there and he says, "I'm going to deliver it," and she says, "How? You don't have the key," and he
finds it. Yeah. Yeah, and that's different because like that has more of a practical purpose. It's not something that's repeated, and it still has.
It's like when you hear about people putting up secret cameras in bathrooms, or when you hear about boys. No, not like boys, but you know, it's just boys. You know that phrase that boys wants to lurk on girls going into the showers at school. It's not an okay thing, not even if you're a boy. I mean, but that's just but it's disgusting. No matter what, no matter if it's a 13-year-old boy trying to sneak a peek at a 16-year-old girl at the shower, it's still disgusting.
But I think the real problem here is that
he is a sick peeping Tom. But he tells
not exactly in that way
not.
Because he's not there to lurk on her sexually.
No, it's not sexually.
But it is.
But it is.
He's there for the mind reading because this is the alternative he has to the mind reading, and he's also there because he feels compelled because he's irrationally, neurotically afraid for her.
And I didn't know it. That becomes such a violation that it is sort of sexual. I know it's not rape. It's not peeping at someone naked, but it's so private.
No, I agree. I think for me, I was with him because I've already explained in previous videos that I get how anxious Edward is. And I figured that what was going on in this scene was, much as it is, that he was very, very afraid on her behalf and felt compelled to be beside her. So while I didn't think that what he did was okay, and I would still like for him to properly apologize to Bella later, for the part where it was the meteorite he was worrying about and that whole metaphor, I was like, I feel bad for you. I get why you're doing this.
You're working yourself up.
You're working yourself up, and I feel bad for you, and you shouldn't do this, but I also kind of get you. And then he starts with that whole rationalization thing.
But the problem is that he's going into the house. I think I could forgive him just looking in through the window. He didn't have to be in the room to hear what she's saying. He constantly brags about he's so tuned in to Bella's voice that in a full stadium he could hear her voice perfectly.
But that's also kind of violating her. I feel like it also kind of violates her that she can never say anything, breathe without Edward knowing it.
The toilet thing, right?
Yeah.
She needs a human moment, and I'm like, do you know that he hears every gurgle, every bristle on your teeth?
And that's not even mentioned in Midnight Sun.
No, he mentions the hair, and I actually got a little angry. So Edward is mystified by a lot of girl stuff, and just he's reading Thought Show, so he's like, why did she want to brush her hair so much before her date with me? I don't get it. She normally doesn't do that, and that says a lot about how Edward peeps on her. She normally doesn't brush her hair that long, and I'm like, yo, you invited a girl on a freaking date. She wants to look good to you, and you know that. You actually get through all that, why she's brushing her hair, and goes all the way to, she wanna look nice for me. And then the first thing this fucking prick does, because he's so stupid, is he laughs at her.
He does?
Mm-hmm. Because they're wearing the same outfit. They're wearing the same colors. I think it's a button-up shirt, and brown pants.
He doesn't laugh at her hair.
No, he doesn't laugh at her hair, but he doesn't mention it. He never says to her, you look nice. He laughs at her.
Oh.
So this girl, who he knew went through extra bit of self-care to look nice for him, and he notices that, and he comes to the conclusions that, it's because she's going to see me. I'm so pleased. I'm so important. Okay. I mean, that's okay. That's
human.
It's almost human. I like people making an effort. I put on mascara for you guys, so but he knows that. He has that extra knowledge, and the first thing he does for this girl who never had a date before, consciously at least, is that he laughs at her. And he doesn't do it in a way that's funny. I think he actually uses a word, she pouts about it, I think. He doesn't have any grasp on reality. And every time Bella tries to make an effort, he sort of belittles it. And I didn't like that about him. That he has all this foreknowledge and he has all this time, because he tells us all the time how fast his brain is working. And then he actually concludes that she want to look nice.
Yeah, but he doesn't even mention.
Yeah.
I don't think the laughing part is so bad. It's the...
I mean, the laughing part wasn't bad if she was included in the joke.
But he tells her that they match.
He tells her that they match, and she says, because she's embarrassed that he doesn't think she looks nice.
Yeah. Or at least that he's laughing at her expense.
Yeah.
And the thing is that he doesn't tell her that, Alice gave me this outfit a long, long time ago. And that's why he's laughing, obviously, because Alice somehow saw that he was going to need this. And they would match. So yeah, I get your point. He is not very good at actually using his power for good.
He wasn't smiling at first. This is from Bella's perspective. He wasn't smiling at first. His face was somber, but then his expression lightened as he looked me over, and he laughed. "Good morning," he chuckled. "What's wrong?" So she's thinking something is wrong because he's laughing at her. And he says, "We match." He laughed again. I realized he had a long light tan sweater on with a white collar showing underneath and blue jeans. I laughed with him, hiding a secret twinge of regret. Why did he have to look like a one-way model when I couldn't? So he does take that from her, that she did make an effort, and she actually tried to look really nice to this really beautiful guy. And I know he doesn't perceive himself as really beautiful. He knows that he's overwhelming for humans.
He doesn't really care about it, at least.
Yes, exactly. He knows he's overwhelming for humans, but as we learn in Midnight Sun, he doesn't think that applies to Bella.
And at this point, he knows he dazzles her.
Exactly. So he does know at this point.
Yeah.
And we're dissecting the book, so of course, if you didn't notice this, if you didn't feel this way, that's okay. Like, I was so bored by this book. So obviously, I had to like take out my claws and just dig them in at the little things. And at the end, I just stopped. I think at the baseball fight, I was like so bored with this book. And that's where the good things start, that I just stopped making notes. And that's like 500 pages into this 671 pages long book.
Before we talk about that, the point where it gets
interesting.
Yeah. There are two things I want to just end with. And I think one segues nicely into that, which is that I was very angry that Edward gets to be very sexual. He gets to really feel the electricity when they're in that dark room, and he gets to use it as a metaphor later, and he gets to think about how her body makes him feel and how she has a nice silhouette and stuff like that. You know,
he actually over-sexualizes her because he gets sort of angry inside, like not angry outside, that she wears a hideous sweater that's hiding her body.
No, I think he appreciates the sweater because
he
not
says so,
tempted.
but he's also saying like it would be nice if she was wearing something. She's not. This is a good thing though that he doesn't tell her. He doesn't tell her that he doesn't like how the sweater forms on her body. So it's okay, you can think stuff, but
But I disagree. I don't think he over-sexualizes her. I think he gets to just be sexual.
Okay.
I think it's fair that when you're interested in a person that you start to view them in a sexual light and that you appreciate it. Oh, you're wearing nice clothes. I mean, that's fair. What I really just find so sad about it was that when I reread Twilight, I was just like, where's the sexual energy? Bella doesn't really get to feel a lot until Eclipse of the sexual urges. It's very between the lines. It's really not very outspoken.
I would just say, as a not late bloomer, but I chose not to think about it because it was so difficult for taking those sexual steps. And I was at her age when I got my first real boyfriend. Because I was not ready to do anything about it. So I felt like how Bella felt when I read the book and I was 15 and I hadn't done anything. it felt good that it wasn't filled with all the sexual innuendos, which was the case of Court of Roses and Thorns and Roses. Sorry.
Yeah.
The sex was out there from the get-go.
Yeah.
And
she wasn't a virgin though.
She wasn't a virgin, exactly, and that was very freeing for a 25-year-old me reading that.
Yeah.
But would it have been for 15-year-old me? I don't think so. So I think we were expecting Edward to have some thoughts regarding this, but with Bella, and that's not because she's a girl, but I liked, and I did it this time too, that the sex thing was a build-up. That was because they trusted each other more, and she's curious about it. She asks him, can we ever have sex? Not like outright, but she does say something like that. And he says, no, that can never happen.
He also repeatedly tries to stop himself from thinking about it because he knows it can never happen.
Yes.
But it's not a lot in Midnight Sun either. I just felt like maybe Twilight could have had a little bit more of this physical...
But we did get it in
want
Eclipse.
to. Yeah. But I just felt like it created this dichotomy of, oh, girls are so virginous and holy, like they don't think about sex, and Edward can think about sex because.
But she changes that, because in Eclipse and some of Breaking Dawn, that's Bella. She wants the sex.
Yeah.
She wants.
Well, that's a good point.
So she does change where Edward is the virtuous one. Probably both because he thinks he will kill her if she's human.
I don't think Edward is being virtuous really for virtuous reasons.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's just he doesn't want to break her with
his
dick.
It's because he wants the marriage so bad.
Yeah, he really wants them to marry, and I also get that he is from a different time, and I think that's fair. That he wants that, and he wants that if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. And the last thing I want to mention before we go into the end is how everybody loves Bella, apparently. And I really thought that it was a very lazily written, this how...
Except with Rosalie.
Yeah, except with Rosalie, but how Edward is constantly saying that Bella is bringing out the protective side in everyone. And I was just thinking, like, this is bullshit. Like, she doesn't really, and... Why should she? She's not
Emmett
that
is
special.
in it for their fun.
Yeah, he's in it for the fun, and
Jasper is doing it because Alice already loves Bella, because she already feels all the love from the future of them being best friends.
Yeah.
So Jasper is not in it for that either.
No. I just felt like I guess it's just again Edward putting her up on a pedestal. He feels she's so extraordinary, and she just isn't.
But that's what you do with your first crush,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh my god. I mean,
and
if my boarding school boyfriend is seeing this, I held him to so high regards. I think it was unfair somehow, because when he disappointed me in our relationship, it was... I was somewhat mean. I was just like, yeah, we're not together anymore. So you do that with your crush, right? You forget actually what they are. You put them up there, especially when you're a teen. Like, oh, you're like this and you're like that, and for me you're the brightest person in the room, and then suddenly all that first love glow is done and you see them in the right element and you're like, shit, man. Sorry, my high school sweetheart, no, my boarding school sweetheart, he was such a nice guy. Like, from everything, he was a nice guy. It was just, we were different people, and I didn't realize that because of the love.
Yeah, you become blind by it.
Yeah.
But I mean, my point with this isn't that Bella is a bad person or that I don't like Bella. I do. It's just that he shouldn't. He thinks of her as this extraordinary being, whereas like, but she's a normal person, and there's nothing wrong with being a normal person. And Bella has her own specialness in certain areas, and appreciate that. Okay, that's actually a very good example of that, is that Bella is not that good, because when they talk about Emma, like they have that whole quizzing sequence, and she ends up talking about how she doesn't like Emma, the Austen owl, because Emma is so full of herself. And I'm like, you seriously didn't notice that the whole theme in Emma is that she is too self-absorbed to truly see her surroundings, and that she grows throughout the story and finally sees the fault in her ways? Like, that's the point of Emma.
But you're 26, 27. You can say that. When I read Emma, I was like, fuck you, Emma. And I think I was maybe 16.
I love Emma.
so no, Emma I didn't love.
But
Pride and Prejudice,
But
Emma,
then Bella
nothing
just
Abby.
But then she just, if she doesn't see that about Emma, then she just isn't the great reader that she's put out to be.
No, but she's 17.
Yeah, but I think the story just a lot of the time presents.
But that
her
would have
as
been
if
interesting if he had told her that.
Yeah,
because he would have known.
Yes, exactly. Why didn't this become a real conversation?
But that's the same of the pointlessness of him reading her favorite book, War and Thorns. Thorns and War.
Claw and Tooth.
Okay, so he's reading that. I can't remember anything, and he doesn't talk to her about it.
Yeah,
I mean, you're trying to get to know her. Why don't you discuss her favorite book with her?
I would.
And you do that when you're in the beginning of a new relationship.
Yeah.
You take on the other person's interest to be have something connecting you two together, but they're never connecting about it.
Yeah.
They're just having it for themselves, knowing that, oh, he likes that, okay, she likes that. Pointless.
True. I just wish they actually talked about things, because They don't actually go into the depth of things. And it is a story about a relationship. I don't mind reading a conversation where they have an interesting discussion about. But
that's again that would, I think Midnight Sun was exceptionally boring for me because we just read Twilight. There was so little of the book that was new information. Because I knew the plot, it wasn't that interesting constructed either. Because this is a love story. But what is Midnight Sun?
A love story too, I guess.
At one point in the book he says, why fight against Alice's sights? It's inevitable. So some of the things he does because Alice has already seen it. But then he wants to fight Bella becomes a vampire. And I don't get it. Why?
He also fights her vision of him killing Bella.
But then why saying that, why fight Alice? Because he does do that. But okay, yeah. I don't have a point.
Should we talk about the end?
The ending of Midnight Sun. What do you think happens? Does Bella become a vampire? Does Edward finally eat her?
I would actually say that the Midnight Sun put more into perspective for me why it's so important that Bella doesn't become a vampire in Twilight. Because if she had become a vampire there, I think she would have some of the regrets that all of the others deal with in their immortality. If instead of sucking out the venom, he had just allowed her to become a vampire, there would be some bitterness. And I think there would be some...
But it would have been the last resort in that opinion, or in that situation, because he wouldn't be able to suck out the venom.
Yeah.
Without killing her. Mm-hmm. So how could there be regrets when it wasn't her fault?
Oh,
she
yeah,
wasn't begging her. No, she could have had regrets.
Yeah, that's my point. Like she wouldn't have come into it the way that she does in Breaking Dawn, because she also has a moment in Eclipse where she's like, "Oh shit, my life is gonna end soon." And then in Breaking Dawn, she's just ready for it, which I think is very important for her becoming such a happy vampire. So I appreciated that, how important it was that Bella got to walk through that, and that her development is actually important for her to become the vampire she was supposed to become. But I thought the whole climax of the story was more interesting in Midnight Sun because there's some real action.
Finally, it's happening. Yeah.
But in a way, Twilight is more interesting because it's more emotional. Her mother is presumably taken captive and she's sacrificing herself, going over there, etc. But I really like the car chase scene with all of Edward's little comments about this is a cool car, and the car crashes and the chase, and then after they've killed James, how we have that whole chapter of Alice planning ahead, and we just get this full-on view of how her mind works and how her powers work. And so those two things I really enjoyed.
So to be honest, you only have to read like the last 200 pages of this 671 pages.
Maybe also the first chapter, because that's fun. The part where he's planning how to slaughter an entire classroom.
Yeah. I don't know.
You didn't enjoy that?
I actually didn't. It would, yeah. I ordered The Boys. I don't know if anyone has seen it on Amazon Prime, but it's a comic. And I'm going to enjoy that blood-soaking pages, after this. I'm going home tonight and I'm reading some The Boys because I need something action-powered with blood and evilness and people dying and dogs humping shit out of... Yeah, sorry. There's good scenes. So I'm looking forward to that. But I like the last 150 pages. From when James enters the baseball game and the rest of the book, it's nice.
Yeah.
Because everything is so new and fresh and different.
Yeah, from Edward's perspective.
From Twilight. And there's new scenes, and this adds to Twilight instead of just expanding. And I thought that was the boring part. It's just so little for me. It's too little. It's just like putting in calories in a perfectly good chocolate bar. I mean, why do I need a chocolate bar with Smarties in it? Why can't I just eat Smarties or M&Ms? I don't know what you call it, and then chocolate. I just don't get the combination. I mean, I get chocolate and salted caramel. Yes. But this
is starting to get a weird
analogy. Like
analogy.
Midnight Sun is just a chocolate bar with M&Ms in it, and it's not the M&Ms with peanuts. It's just plain M&Ms.
And then suddenly there's some salty caramel at the end.
And then there's salted caramel at the end. It's like when you get an ice cream cone, and then at the bottom of the cone they just put chocolate in. And I love that. And that was what happened with Midnight Sun. So I'm not complaining about the last part, except like, fuck Renee. I hate you.
But do you think
such a
do you think mom. Stephanie Meyer is aware of how bad of a mom Renee is?
I think Renee needs to be a bad mom for Bella to be so responsible and needing someone who needs her, but not in a make food for me way. Not pay the bills way. He needs her for her. Her mom needed her to be the grown-up. Her dad is better. A lot better, because he enjoys having Bella there. Just hearing her in the house, hearing about her day-to-day life.
I smile when I think about Charlie.
He says he spoils her, but she does a free will make food for him and take over the grocery shopping. He has lived without her in the house for 16, 17 years.
Yeah, he can take care of himself.
She knows he would pay the bills, that he manages. And what she cares about with Charlie is that he will be lonely without her now. What she cares about with Renee is, does she know where the dryer is in our house? I mean, that's a huge ass machine. And she realizes also, I think that's a good thing about Bella, that how she was a selfish child about her dad. She didn't want to go to Forks, so she made him come 2 weeks a year out to her. Yeah, sorry. That got sad. Yeah. So the ending. I still fucking hate prom. I would say...
Okay, so...
You don't have to see everything, but just go see that clip in the Twilight movie of Honestly Twilight podcast series, because I made a good point about prom.
Yeah. A recap is that Edward fucking forces her to prom. She doesn't want to go. And then
she starts crying.
She starts crying, and then he says, "Don't be difficult, Bella."
Yes.
And he does not explain to her why he's taking her to prom, which is explained in Midnight Sun, and it's kind of a bullshit.
And then you think, oh, but he's probably learning from this experience, never doing it again. But boom! Then in Eclipse, he does it again!
No, it's a new moon with her birthday.
It's the birthday? Oh, yeah. I thought it was the graduation party too. He actually does it twice.
Yeah, okay, he does it twice. And the wedding.
And the wedding, yeah, but she ends up then liking the wedding.
Yeah, and she is kind of on board with the wedding.
Because with the prom, the only thing she actually likes is dancing with him. But they could have done that everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think she would have been happier.
I really didn't like his whole reasoning for taking her to prom. He has this idea of Bella in the future, where he would have left her and she would be like in her 40s and her kids would ask her about her prom and she would be like, oh, and then reminiscing about Edward, and he wants her to have like a nice memory of that. And
get the fuck out, Edward.
There are just so many things that are frustrating here. The first thing is that he disregards her emotions about the thing now, because he wants her to feel something later. But also just that he again disregards that she wants to be with him. That would not be a happy memory. That would be a sad memory. He knows from Midnight Sun how broken Bella will be if he leaves her.
Yeah, he's seen that in Alice's vision.
If he left her and she goes through that heartbreak and somehow manages to find a Jacob to pick her back up again afterwards, do you think she's gonna look fondly back at prom? No. Not at all. She's going to be trying not to think about her time in Forks with Edward. She's not going to be looking fondly back at it, you moron. She loves you.
Yeah, but he loves her more than she loves him.
Does he?
That's the problem with Midnight Sun, that he diminishes a lot of her feelings by saying that he feels more.
Yeah. And I actually think she kind of loves him better because she sees him better than he sees her. And that's why he disregards her constantly. And you don't disregard someone that you love like he disregards Bella. That's not love. And it's frustrating.
He actually says at one point... Yeah, no... one thing Edward says to Bella is that he actually gets really sad that she doesn't like being on his back when he's running. She gets sick.
Yeah, because he was so excited to share that with her.
Yeah, and he says, but more than that, before Bella, running had been my favorite thing. I wanted to share it with her. And I think like we just said before, in every relationship when you start out, if he had opened his mouth and said to her, actually, Bella, running is my favorite thing in the world. I really want to share it with you. Could we do something so you can try it? But what he does instead is like forcing her. He's manipulating her actively in this sequence with kisses to forget how she dislikes running on his back. And he says, just close your eyes. And it actually works. We know that. But maybe if they just compromised and found it out together. Like she says, could you maybe just run 30 miles per hour?
Yeah.
I don't know how fast that is. 50 kilometer i timen. 50 kilometers
per hour.
I think it would have been an easy solution. She would have gotten that. She's compassionate. He's saying that so many times.
Yeah.
She understands people and she wants them to feel good. And he just disregards that and then being like, I have to convince her.
And he could just convince her, actually,
and he
with
never
words.
He never tells her in any of the books that running is his favorite thing.
I think we kind of sense it in Breaking Dawn when they run together.
I noticed it was a lie when I said it, but I'm trying to pull up my inner Edward.
Oh.
Just
You're
manipulating
manipulating me? Oh. Bastard. Get the fuck out.
Because we knew he liked running, yeah. But I'm saying a lot, Midnight Sun is not a bad book. If you like Twilight, definitely read it. But maybe just don't read Twilight right before. Because it is so boring. And I've noticed a lot of reviews saying that middle part where they're just wallowing, I think it's around the meadow right before the meadow until the baseball game, it's just so boring. Because there's so many thoughts from Edward. And everything is just a build on. We're being told about some more feelings, some deeper feelings, how he has it with Emmett, and it's okay. It's just a lot. And as you said, it's on the dialogue. So Bella says something and then it sets off a memory and then he thinks out the whole memory and then he continues to talk because his brain is so fast, Joe. And it gets boring.
Yeah. And it drowns out Bella.
But it's repetitive. He's repeating all the same thoughts. I shouldn't be with her. She shouldn't want to be with her. Why am I not scaring her?
Should I put her in an asylum?
Yeah.
He actually thinks that.
She's not normal.
Yeah.
I'm constantly baffled by her reactions. I think the 5th time he said that, I was like, get baffled by something else. Like, what kind of shoes does she wear? I mean, does she have a raincoat?
As a last part, how has your perspective on Edward changed from Midnight Sun?
I don't think it's changed. I think it was because we reread all the books. I think it's pretty much the same.
You don't think this added to your understanding?
Yeah, but I think his reasoning is shit.
Oh yeah.
So maybe that's why. I mean, he laughs at her and don't be mad. I pleaded. I couldn't help myself. You should have seen your face. Another laugh escaped. I tried to swallow the one that followed. She finally looked up, meeting my gaze with anger sparking in her eyes. Oh, you're the only one who's allowed to get mad? And then he continues with this, like, it's sort of gaslighting her. I wasn't mad at you, I assured her. Yes, he was. Her voice nearly dripped acid as she quoted me. "Bella, you'll be the death of me." My humor turned black, but didn't totally disappear. I'd spoken more truth in that moment of wild emotion than I'd meant to. That was simply a statement of fact. She twisted in my hold, trying to pull away. I put one hand against her cheek so she couldn't hide her face from me. Before I could say more, she insisted, "You were mad." "Yes," I agreed. "But you just said that I wasn't mad at you." Nothing seemed funny now. She'd taken the blame on herself. "Can't you see that, Bella? Don't you understand?" So he justifies that he gets mad in her presence, where she feels that he is mad. She feels that it's her fault that he's getting mad.
He says, "Damn it, Bella."
And yeah, exactly. And he says, "No, I was not mad at you. I was mad." And then he continues explaining that he was mad at himself. But
he makes her feel.
We had the same conversation, the exact same wording in Twilight. And this information from him didn't add anything new. It's the same conversation. It doesn't explain why he gets mad. It doesn't even explain it in Midnight Sun when it does happen. He justifies it. I think Midnight Sun is just a long, big justification that Edward was right to have mood swings. And I don't agree.
Yeah.
And that's why when we come to the good part of Midnight Sun, we don't have a lot to say about it. Because it was good. There's problems still with their relationship, but for the most part of that, Edward and Bella isn't together. And I think that's funny that we find that the good part.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. I think it's also because Edward goes into hunter mode, so he doesn't think quite as much in that part.
But I think the book would actually have a more immediately feel if she written it in a present tense instead of
past tense.
Yes. And she does that with Twilight too, which I noticed. And I just think when you're in people's thought, that when it's in a past tense, it gets a little retellingly. If that's a word, it's not. But it gets to be a retelling. This has already happened. I know the outcome, the narrator says, by it being set in a past tense. And I thought it would have been showing off his skills if she had written it in a present tense where it was a more immediately feel, because Edward's mind reading is also immediately. It's in the now. Yeah, that was what I have time thinking a lot about while reading, because I didn't have to be totally observant while reading it. Because, I mean, I've had this dialogue before and I still think Edward is the prig of it. So I don't think Edward changes. I loved him more in Twilight. To be honest. My inner teen was like, "Oh, you're so mysterious." He wasn't mysterious in this. He was just whiny.
And that might be the danger of Midnight Sun if you haven't read it. It might destroy Edward for you. I
would really like someone who's never written Twilight, read Twilight, read Midnight Sun first.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective.
How is that? Yeah. But I feel definitely like you started out with your last experience with Twilight being shit.
Yeah.
Like you hated Twilight. And I come out on the other side and being like, if I never see Twilight again, it's too soon. Yeah, I mean, Eclipse for me, oh my god, I'm breaking down. It was so boring. We changed perspective because you actually come to be in a neutral ground.
Yeah, I feel pretty neutral. Like, my boyfriend jokes that this is my favorite series. It's obviously not, but he likes to tease me with it because I laugh but I generally I have reactions when I read. I'll laugh, I'll slap books and put them away if something's awkward, and so I have very strong reactions when I read, much stronger than when I watch movies actually. So I also laughed, and I had generally a good time in Midnight Sun. It was just too long and too derivative, and as I said earlier, there comes a point where I get it. He is angsty boy. I don't need to get it spelled out every fucking opportunity you have to do it. And I felt sad for Bella, and I also felt that Edward lost. I just think he got some bad sides to him. For instance, with the whole reasoning, with the crawling in. Because I just assumed before that he was just anxious for her and compelled to be by her side. And while that's still not good reasoning for breaking her privacy and not apologizing properly for it later, the whole thing where he's like, oh, I've already broken laws, whatever. It's his disregard for her privacy, her right to privacy.
He doesn't even think about that.
Yeah, he doesn't even think about it. Like, so there are those minor things where I'm like, no, this is really breaking Edward for me. Though he obviously becomes a better person in Eclipse and Breaking Dawn. He becomes a slightly worse person from reading Midnight Sun. And I sort of feel like
because he was flawed before.
Yeah.
It's not like he was perfect.
I mean, his whole neurotic thing is a flaw, and that's enough. And
the problem, you can be neurotic, of course.
I am.
But you also need to work with that.
I mean, the whole thing where he realizes that he's just rationalizing and that all of his thoughts are irrational. He should have, by now, developed some kind of way to deal with it. Or if this is the first time that his neuroticism is really showing, he should be realizing what's going on and that he should figure out a way to deal with this. He could talk with Carlisle. Carlisle probably knows a bunch of psychologists. He probably took a course in it at one point. Get help. Which is also another thing I'd like to know. Like, who was he before all of this? Because was he always this angsty? Or is it Bella who's bringing it on?
I think he was always gloomy. At that point, he is a good vampire.
Yeah.
Also, the idea Esme has that it's so sad that he hasn't found anyone to be with. She disregards how much he loves his family and being with them. Because he definitely enjoys spending time with Alice. Alice and him has a special relationship, and it's actually quite beautiful.
Yeah, they're the best part of.
Yeah, there's something good.
Yeah,
about them. But still, I mean, Jasper has become my Twilight crush.
Yeah, really. Jasper, and I also really like Emmett is actually not as dumb. Like, he is quite clever, or like he's not dumb in Midnight Sun. We realize that he is just goofy, so he doesn't bother with saying clever stuff all the time, but he's not dumb. I like that addition, and I also really like the scene with, now talking about Edward and Alice, where we're told how they met, and how she just runs up to him and is like, then shows him their friendship, and then it's like, oh, now I know you too. Like,
also that she has like these feelings of love and kinship and a siblingship inside of her already. They're already her feelings because she know that it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. So, what did you gain from rereading the Twilight series? Has it been fun? It's been fun with you. I think it's been a lot of work reading it. I've come to that stage in my life. If I'm bored in a book, I do not finish it. And for every book, there's readers. While criticizing a work, it's also taking it seriously, right? I mean, I will never judge anyone for reading this and enjoying it. It has problems, and I will discuss that if you want to. But a lot of books has that, and you can still enjoy them. I enjoyed reading Twilight a lot. I did not enjoy reading the Twilight saga. I feel like I kind of gained what I wanted. I made some sort of peace with myself about the fact that I liked Twilight once and I hated it once, and now I'm at a, I kind of had fun.
Will you give this to kids in your family? Small children now getting on 14, 15.
There are none of those in my family, but
they can come.
I don't know. Only if something happened to make me think that this was the right book for them.
Because
I wouldn't let's say I got a niece and she turned 14. I wouldn't automatically give her Twilight. There are so many other books.
But that's the fun thing, because everybody did.
Yeah.
Back in the zeros.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Horses and Twilight.
I had fun, but at the same time, it also underlined to me that this is not my genre anymore, because
YA?
YA, and just the I really like when there are real consequences and there are real character complexities and character arcs, and where the problematic shit gets to be problematic shit, and that is actually dealt with as problematic shit instead of being glossed over or it's perfect, so whatever, which is done a lot in Twilight. So even though I can read them now unironically and enjoy parts, I'm still like, it's too bad that potential wasn't harvested.
I think maybe that's why, while we have reread Twilight, I've started a new genre in audiobooks, and it's thrillers. And it's mostly about women getting lost or getting beat up, and it's usually from the perspective of a woman too. And I think it's because there's consequences. Somebody has already been killed or disappeared, and now we're remembering how it was to be teenagers, and how what we did as teenagers has consequences for you being a grown-up. And I think maybe that's a reaction to this, because there's no consequences. She got pregnant basically at 17. She's just fresh off. Okay, she's almost 19, but still, her husband is 17. And I mean, that's problematic today, right? Yeah, so what I wanted to conclude was, I think the thriller need is that there's some, what would you think? Consequences. There's some consequences. If you were a bitch in high school and you go back to that city where you grew up, people don't like you. It's not automatically. Like, if you have pushed people away the whole life, like Edward does, people doesn't show up to your graduation party at your house. I know they excuse it in Eclipse with nobody has seen the Cullen house. Of course, everybody wants to come, and Alice anticipated that. I know that, but really, does the whole town show up?
They're rich, so it's gonna be a good party.
But that's the minor thing, and then there's all the big thing. There's no consequences, and Edward actually notices that in Midnight Sun, to him going into Bella's room at night without her consent.
Yeah.
And he says a normal person would probably be mad, and I sort of wish that I will get punishment from her, because who else will punish me?
I mean, that's a nice part. At least he sort of wants to be punished for having done that.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the thriller genre, but I mean, I think hit me up with the good ones you find, because I feel like personally in the mystery and thriller genre, I just always feel very disconnected. Because I
felt that way too. So actually, thrillers, I saw this book on Instagram and I was like, okay, its front page, its cover is so pretty. And then it was...
best selling point for a book.
And that was on the library app for audiobooks. I like hearing English books. And I was like, yeah, why not? And then I got so engrossed that I've heard both books by this author, and now I'm going through a different one, and because I'm not so good at crime fiction, and here in Scandinavia, crime fiction is the shit. I mean, whoa.
Yeah.
And I feel like working at a library where a lot of people come in to borrow our crime fiction, I should sort of like look into that. I don't think I will like the typical Scandinavian crime fiction. It's because the plot is so obvious. And I read a lot of YA, so I don't know why I hate that.
I think it's not so much that the plot is obvious. It feels sort of like, when I start a some crime fiction, I open it and I'm like, oh, someone died. Well, they're probably gonna figure it out, and then they die.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't care about the characters.
It's not obvious what happens. It's the skabelon.
Yeah, it's the structure.
It's the plot.
Yeah.
The plot is put into a schematics.
But I mean, most authors do that no matter the genre.
I know, but every genre has its specific plot points or schematics or how the story should evolve. I basically know when there is a murder, somebody will get punished. And I'm not very interested in that investigation. So I have to have something else in the crime fiction that interests me.
There has to be something emotional.
And that was the interesting part of Twilight, actually, just to put it back to Twilight. When you told me this was a teen romance, suddenly it just clicked. Like, of course, that's the plot. That's the structure. There's no action and there's no need to be. And the problem with Midnight Sun and that structure is it's too long.
For what it's supposed to be, yes. But I think we're closing in on the end. The end of an era. A summer. The summer that Josephine and I have spent together.
Well, there's rumors, and we haven't checked into those, that there will be new Twilight books set after Breaking Dawn. And I just have to tell you, I don't think I will go there.
I might read them, but I don't think I will because
you're done with this genre.
I have had it with 4 books where nothing happens in the climax and there's no consequences. I might reread these for the nostalgia at some point because I have made peace with that part of me who liked Twilight, and that part of me might want to revisit them at one point, and I'm fine with that, but I don't feel any need to add to this.
I've done my Twilight. I've loved Edward so fiercely.
Hated Jacob so fiercely as well.
I think it says a lot about me that I married a hobbit. I marry Sam. What is it called in English?
Samwise Gamgee?
I want to see Gamgee too.
Yeah.
I married Sam from Lord of the Rings, and I love him so much. So that's a quite big difference from Edward.
Yeah. That was it for this time.
But remember, spread the glitter.
And like, subscribe, and comment, and ring the bell, and check out the channel. Maybe check out the other Honestly Twilight videos or the other videos I have laying around on the channel on various writing related topics.
Whoop whoop. Whoop whoop. It's the sound of the police. Shit.
Shit, mand. Jeg har brug for den der slukker nu.